morning and welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning.
I am going to start in Virasana as my first seated pose, but feel free to start in Sukhasana with the legs crossed if that's better for you. I just like to mix it up a little bit. So one way to get comfortable in Virasana as a starting point or any other point, use a block, take the block right between your feet. I hug the block with my heels, the inner heels here. And then as I sit back, I take my hands to the calf and the thumb goes right into the middle of the calf. And I try to pull the calf back as I sit down. And I hope that it's not too much of a strain on my knees. And if it is, I want to get a little bit higher up so I can use a second block, or I could actually build up a little bit more height with a blanket. So if you're comfortable trying this, go ahead, get into this position. Once you get into this position, then you lean forward and you do as you always do, take the flesh of the buttocks and draw them out and back. So these adjustments really make a huge difference in the way you sit, in your posture. So pay attention to those details. Take a few breaths. I'm just going to focus on the breath for a moment here. And as I focus on my breath, I'm also observing and sensing the physical body. So from the top of the shin down to the toes, I'm sensing a stretch that I don't normally get, especially if I'm sitting in Sukhasana. And it might be a little bit different, so it might be a little uncomfortable to start with. But between you and your breath, you're going to help to somehow or other, diminish that discomfort. Close your eyes. And just with your hands on your thighs, bring attention to your breath. Let your breath bring attention to your spine. So if you think about the spine as that central axis right here, it's almost like a revolving door with the spine of the door right in the middle, and it can pivot forward and back and all the way around. Think of your spine in that way for now. The two sides of the body, the two edges of that door. And it's a good visual for our class today. Notice how deep you're breathing, how deep that inhale is finding itself in the body. And if you're seated on a block or your buttocks are touching the floor, try to breathe and inhale right into the block or the floor. Make the connection between the inhalation and the sit bones. Breathing through the two nostrils on the inhale and allowing yourself to open the mouth gently, minimally as you exhale. And then turn the palms up and let the elbows relax. I'm going to change the focus slightly here. So now as I breathe and inhale, I'm drawing from the block, from the two sit bones up. Again, allowing the mouth to gently open as you exhale. And then we're going to take the hands together at the heart. This is the last part of this opening sequence. And now we're going to take 5 breaths. And those 5 breaths entail a count of 4 as you inhale and a count of 6 as you exhale. And you'll start in your own time with the inhale. The rate of the breath is the same on the inhale as the exhale. So the rate does not change. The length of the breath changes. And then just take normal, natural breaths. Sense your spine centered right over the block. Lining up the shoulder area. And also lengthening through the neck. Now, as you lengthen through the back of the neck, to help you do that, you draw the back of the skull up and you sit down into the block at the same time and pull the navel in. And that is a really excellent adjustment to maximize the length in the spine. So let's do that again. So just relax for a moment. And now begin to inhale and lengthen through the back of the skull. The bottom, the base of the skull draws up as you inhale and you pull the navel in as you exhale. And you're really optimizing the best position for the spine right here. And now we're going to chant 3 ohms. Big inhale to begin. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Shaigasya Javayogena Yopa Karatam Pravaramaninaam Patanjalim Pranjalir Anatusmi Abahu Parushakaram Shankachakrasi Darinam Sahasrashir Samshwetam Prananami Patanjalim Hari Om. Bow your head towards your heart. Release your hands. Lift your head. Open your eyes. If you're in Virasana, go ahead and step your hands forward and come into a table top position. And we're just going to take a few breaths here in this pose. It's not cat pose, it's not cow pose, it's right in the middle. And gazing down just a little bit in front of the fingers, I'm spreading the fingers, pressing down into the floor. And I'm breathing into my spine. I'm again refocusing that central axis here. Breath is really the key ingredient of this particular pose. And as you breathe, just notice the response in your shoulders as you exhale. There's a slight drawing back and down of the shoulder blades as if they're sliding toward your back pocket. And as you inhale, notice the slight encouragement of the front ribs, the side ribs, as they expand and help draw the chest forward. And then go ahead and come on up onto the knees. We're going to take this pose one more time, taking your thumbs and bringing them right behind the knee and pressing into the very topmost part of the calf muscles here. So there's two major calf muscles, one on either side of your thumb there. So but we're going to slide the thumb down right between the two and sit back down. And you may find that you have to recenter your block. And then from here, you're going to lift that left arm up. And then taking your right hand off to the side here, start to turn your body to the right. And then take your left arm and reach it over your right leg and twist a little bit more. So you've got an added dimension here just coming from the hand to leg here. And then take your right arm behind you. And if you can, you'll just grab hold of your clothing, whatever clothing you have on, just grab hold of it there on the side of the hip and help yourself twist a little more. Thinking about spinning around that axis, that spinal axis. Now, pull the navel in as you lengthen through the base of the skull. You can see how the spine is readjusting. You can feel it. And then release. Now, that doesn't feel like a lot. It doesn't feel like you put your body necessarily through a lot there or put a lot of effort into that. But what it is doing, it's helping coordinate the breath and the spine to get the spine in the optimal position for some of the other poses that we'll practice today. Inhale, take your right arm up, take your left hand off to the side, using your left hand to help yourself pivot around that spine. So there's that revolving door right there. And then you can take your right hand over the left thigh, and if you can, take the right arm behind you. You can just let it rest there on the right side of the hip, or if you can hold on to a piece of your fabric there. Spinning around, but turning slowly and thoughtfully. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lengthen through the base of the spine to maximize the length in the neck. And as we exhale, then we'll pull the navel in, and you can feel that sit bones really draw down and into the block. And then it gives you a little bit of an opening to twist. So that revolving door again, turning around the spinal axis. You may get a little adjustment and then release. I tend to get an adjustment on this side more than on this side. Okay, now we're going to have a seat in Sukhasana. I think I can hear you whisper, thank goodness. So we're going to have a seat now. I'm going to sit on my blanket. No block necessary. I'm going to take Sukhasana now. I'm going to have a seat. And it's a nice little break from the Virasana. So it gives the knees and the shins just that little bit of a respite here. Take the hands to the buttocks and draw the flesh out. Notice which foot you have in front because we have to do this twice. So you're going to have to change the position of the feet. Sit up tall. Take your right hand off to the side. Take your left arm up. Take your body and pivot around that axis. And then take your left hand across. And if you like, you can take that right arm around. And again, if you can grab something, it might be a little challenging here because the leg is out to the side. So whatever you can do there to help you pivot. Try not to let the two thighs lift up. Try to keep the thighs descending and pull the navel in and turn some more. Draw through the base of the skull. And then release. Come back, take a breath. Left hand off to the side, right arm up. If this is fine for you, just keep your left hand there. You don't have to take it all the way back if it's uncomfortable. You're going to pivot around and then take your right hand across. And if you want to try that side, go ahead and take that left hand behind you. And trying to keep your thighs descended here. Turn. And then release. And then we're going to recross the feet. So you're going to take that inner foot and bring it forward. Now, if you're in this position and you find that your feet are uncomfortable and you're focusing a lot on your feet, just go ahead and bring your feet on the blanket. So you can open your blanket and give them a little bit more cushion. So I'm going to take the other side, bringing the 2 feet into that Sukhasana position. Make sure you recross your feet properly. Draw the flesh of the buttocks out. Sit up tall. Inhale, take the left arm up and turn. I'm not going to bring the right hand back here. I'm just going to turn. Do what I can to just find that rotation. There's a tendency to pull this thigh up. So be careful with that. You want to actually, if anything, press into the side of the thigh to help you twist, rather than pull the thigh up. And then release, come back. Take the right arm up and turn. So just watch that this doesn't come up, this left thigh. You want to keep it descending. Lengthening through the skull, the base of the skull. Navel drawing in. And then release. Okay, so now just take your 2 heels and extend them forward. And this is just really to give your knees a break from that crossed over position. Sit up tall. Good. Now, from here, we're going to turn around. Take your hands onto the floor and lift up into downward facing dog.
Now bend your two knees. And you can bend it pretty deeply. Lift your left hand and bring it towards your right ankle and try to wrap your hand around the side there of the Achilles. And then draw the heel down. You can keep the left knee bent for a moment, yeah. And just keep the hip, the right hip and the heel in line. Bring your head in the direction of your front hand. And just line up your spine right there. Thinking about the hand as sort of a topmost point that you're trying to line your spine up with. Out through the top of the skull as you rotate around. And then release. And bring that left hand back, take downward facing dog, stretching the two legs, stretching the two arms. And then you'll bend both knees again. This time you'll lift your right hand and you're going to aim for the left ankle, bringing the hand around the front of the shin and then the back of the lower leg into the Achilles. And now I can keep my right knee bent, but I'm going to straighten the left leg, and that's going to propel me into a twist. And then I'm thinking about my head. Where do I want my head? I pretty much want it to line up with the tip of the thumb there. The tip of the left thumb as I pivot around. And then release. Take your hand back. Take downward facing dog. And then bring your knees down and take child's pose. Now, before you come into child's pose, lift your hips, draw the sit bones way up, and think about lengthening the two sit bones back as you bring the hips lower to the floor. And then take your right hand off to the side, lift your head, and then take your left hand off to the same side. So we're twisting in this child's pose. It's a pretty deep twist, actually. And you're starting to open that left side of the torso. You're feeling it, hopefully, from the left hip to the left hand. And your right hand is helping you twist a little bit more. And then you can come back. Bring your head down just for a breath or two. If you need to make any adjustments in your child's pose, go ahead and do that. I have my knees on the blanket, which actually does really help. And then I'm going to take the left arm out to the side and the right left side, and the right arm comes also to that left side. And I want to find that stretch again in the side body. So from my outer right hip, I'm feeling that length all the way through that right hand. And my breath is helping me deepen the stretch. So that inhale is stretching from this inside of the body. How important is that? Very. We can stretch externally pretty easily. But we also need to stretch from within. And the breath is really key. When it's combined with a pose like this, it's very effective. Good. Come on back, and you just take your hands forward, take your head down. And then lift your hips up. So now I'm going to step my right knee forward, right foot forward rather. Take your left hand onto your thigh and take your right hand onto your sacrum.
So look, you can curl the toes under in the back if you like. If you point the toes back, make sure that you look back and see what your foot is doing. Because it might be doing something that you really don't want it to do, and that is it's going to rotate inward. It might a little bit, but you don't want to over rotate that. So don't sickle the ankle. So I'm using my right hand just to stabilize here, and the left hand is helping me just pivot around the spine. And of course, as I turn, I observe a component of balance. So my body's trying to find a way to stabilize, to balance. Let your gaze stay on the horizon and let it turn. Softly gazing as your gaze turns with your body. Good, release, step back. Take your hands down to the floor. Come back into that neutral place. Take a few breaths. And then you're going to come up and step the left foot forward. Again, I'm going to look back here at my foot. And notice it's turned in slightly. So I'm going to try to turn the toes back. And then to anchor that, I press down into the base of the shin and the top of the ankle. I'm going to take the right hand around and the left hand on the sacrum. So this is telling me, this left hand on the sacrum is telling me to stabilize as I turn. Now, as I turn, I want to also lift the waist so that I can feel the ribs lift up and give me more space there. So that inhalation is going to help provide that lift. And the exhale will invite the twist a little bit more. And then just bring your attention to your gaze and softly find a point somewhere on the horizontal plane. And now as you turn your body, this is a great way to calm the mind, by the way. As you turn your body, let your gaze, soft gaze, turn with the rotation of the body. And then release, step back, hands to the floor. And then we're going to lift up into down dog. I want to get a really nice stretch through the legs here. So what I'm trying to do is push into the hands, into the floor, engage the arms all the way through the shoulders to the hips, and then try to take your heels down as your hips lift up. How much life can you bring in, more life can you bring into the legs? Challenge yourself right here to lift those kneecaps and fully engage the quads. Good. And then from here, I'm just going to walk your 2 feet forward. Bend your knees and roll your spine up. And stand up tall. Okay, so we're going to take your block over. Let's see. Let's go over to your right. I already have a block over there. So I'm going to set my block here. I'm going to stand in Tadasana. Take your left arm and reach it up and over your shoulder. Take your right arm behind you. And you're going to pivot around, keeping the legs very stable. Just pivot to the right. Now, as you pivot, bring attention to your spine. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling the navel in just as I did before. The tailbone feels like it's lengthening down toward the heels. And then I'm drawing through the base of the skull. And then come back, release. Take your right arm up and over the shoulder. Left arm behind. And now start to pivot to the left. Now, before you make any changes, notice your spine, notice your posture, and see if you can make the changes gradually enough so you can feel the difference. So, keeping the legs very firm, quadriceps engaged, draw the tailbone toward the heels, draw the chin in slightly and lengthen through the base of the skull and turn. It makes all the difference. And then release, come back. Take your fingers together to lightly touch, jump or step your feet wide. And you may or may not find that you need more space. So take a look down at your feet. I like to use a lot of space for this pose. So if you have the ability to go wider, try that. And then turn your right foot. Look down at the foot, track the knee right over the foot, and look down at your left foot. I think I could probably turn that heel out just a little bit more. And then from here, lifting the quads, both sides, inner and outer, go ahead and take the hand down, find your block. And if you don't need the block, you can put your hand on the floor or your leg, that's fine. I think the block's pretty helpful. What I like about the block here is I can use the hand on the block to help me rotate the bicep around. So take your left hand here to your bicep and roll it around. And I can feel then my shoulder blade adjust on that right side. And then keeping that open, your left arm, and lengthen through the sternum chest. Now, a lot of focus is all on this side of the body here, right? We're losing a lot of this left hip and left leg because we're focusing so much here. So what I'm going to do again is turn that heel out a little more. And now I'm going to try to open the left hip out and bring the chest forward at the same time. And forward, by that I mean in the direction of your head. And again, if you can allow your gaze to find that arc all the way up to the hand, do that. And then come all the way up, turn your feet, release your arms. So you've got your feet pretty much where you want them for the pose. You may need to reset a little bit. Turn your left foot out. Again, just take a glance down always at that left foot, left knee. We want to track. Look back at your right heel, lift it, engage the two legs. So a lot of firmness. Lift the side body. And then take your left hand down, find your block or wherever you like to put your hand. Bring your attention back to the left leg, engaging it. And then if you can, just take your right hand to your left bicep, and that's quite important for this pose. Turn the bicep out. And then you can anchor it with your hand on the block or your hand on the leg. And then that right arm can come up. Now so I'm extending through the chest. So a lot of my energy is going this way. So I want to counter that by bringing some energy into this right side and letting the energy move away from the upper body here. So the upper body moving east and the lower body moving west. Rolling that hip around, I can turn the heel a little bit more. And then I'm going to draw that nice arc
with my gaze all the way up, and I may not get all the way to the thumb. And then come up, turn, and release the arms. Take your hands to your hips, fold forward, take your hands to the floor. And breathe. Lift your right arm up. Lift your left hand and turn the fingers in toward your body. And then bring that right hand down. Turn the left hand back. Lift the left arm up. And then turn your right hand in. Really opening up that bicep there. Preparing the upper body for some deeper work. And then release. Hands to the hips, inhale, come up. Okay, and we can just step our feet. Standing Tadasana. Take a couple of breaths. Recentering the spine, navel in. Coordinating the navel coming in with the back of the skull lifting up is going to have the impact of the two major inward curves of the spine lengthening. We're going to take our blocks. So if you have two blocks, it's going to be helpful for this next pose. So you'll take your two blocks toward the edge of your mat. And then you'll step your feet a good distance from the blocks and always adjust your feet once you're in the actual pose. So stand facing the blocks. If you only have one block, that's okay. Just turn the block so it's you'll be able to take both hands onto it. Take your right foot and step it forward. And just take that left foot, maybe step it back just a little bit and take a few little steps there just to find your range. So I'm about here for this one because I can feel a good stretch in the calf muscle. That's what I want, but I also want the heel down. And then take your two hands to your outer hips and try to steer the hips into a more square position. Your right hip lining up with that right block, your left hip lining up with the right block. And then take your two arms up, engage the legs, and take the two hands, arms, chest forward. Now, those of you who have the hands on the blocks, you can take the heel of your palm and turn your fingers down the front of the block and the heel of the palm on the block. Try that. Work your left heel back. Press the left heel down and lift the toes off the floor. You really accentuate the effort through the heel. And then bring your shoulders back, your chest forward, and now take your hands back onto the blocks. Regular way, fingers forward, and move your blocks forward about a foot. Notice how much weight has come off that back heel and see if you can rebalance, bringing that energy into the left side of the hip and the leg to counter the energy moving forward. And then step your blocks back onto the mat, arms forward. Use the real balance act here to come up. And then release the two arms. You're just going to push off that front foot and step back and turn your feet so that they face the blocks again. So think about your hips now, just matching with the blocks. And we're going to move into the second side here. Take your left foot forward. Turn your right heel back and try to press down into the heel. It requires a lot of work in the quadricep. So if my quadricep is not working, my knee's going to soften and that heel's going to lighten up and lift off the ground. So try to bring your heel down.
And use your right quad to do that. Your right quad is going to help stretch your right calf. Then take the two arms up. Again, thinking about the squaring of the hips, take the two arms, the chest forward, and bring your hands to the block. Once you get your hands to the block, so you have a little bit extra support to readjust that back leg. Maybe turn the hip forward a little more, and then take your hands and turn your fingers down so the heels of your palms are on the edge, on the front of the block, and the top of the block. Fingers down the front of the block. Now I'm giving this to just get a good stretch in the shoulders. So I have an opportunity to take the breath in there because I pulled the shoulders apart with the arms in this position. So now I'm going to take the hands back onto the blocks regular way, fingers forward. I'm going to lift the blocks now and set them forward about, if you can, a foot or so. Notice how you're losing a little bit of access to the back heel on the floor, and try to bring that life back into the quad to get that heel lower. And then set your blocks back on the mat. Inhale slowly, come all the way up, and exhale, release the arms, and then just turn forward and step your 2 feet together. So now we're going to go into some deeper work, and these are all preparing us. These last 4 poses or so are preparing us for this pose, which is quite a challenging pose. You may want to use a little bit of extra support, and I think a really good way of bringing that support into your pose is with the blanket. So you can, and if you don't need it, you'll just not use it, but you may want to try it. Stepping your heels up on the blanket. Because as you twist, and we're going to twist now, there's a tendency to get really light on that back heel. So if you were getting light on the back heel in the Parsvottanasana, you probably need the blanket. So stand with your 2 feet together, centered. So if you're looking at your blocks now, your feet are right between the blocks. Stand up tall and bring that awareness to your spine yet again, particularly the 2 major curves here. So try to find a little more length by drawing the tailbone down, and try to find a little more length by lifting the base of the skull up. Then step your right foot forward. Now your left heel is on the blanket, or maybe it's on the floor. I'm just going to keep mine on the blanket. I might take it off the blanket at some point. I'm going to start here. So for this one, I'm going to take your right hand onto your hip and just keep that right hip fairly stable as you lift your left arm up. Now again, engage the quads and keep them fully engaged as you start to twist to your right and come forward at the same time, and bring your hand down to the block. Now, I don't like the block on the high position for this because it makes it more unstable for me. So I go down a little lower, so I have more stability with the block on that middle position. Now I'm noticing again, a lot of the effort is coming forward. And I want to balance that by bringing that effort. If you can look here, I've just bent the knee. I'm going to bring that effort into the quad to take that heel actively down, and that's going to also give me a little bit more room to twist. And then you can take the right arm up. Now, if you find you don't need the block, don't use the block. Might be more stable for you. Notice how much you've lost on that left thigh.
And then release. And inhale with the arms up if you can. Come all the way up and release. Step back. Take the 2 feet together. Pause. And then take your left foot and step it forward. Again, inviting that effort into that right leg. Take your left hand to your hip, wrapping your fingers around just the front of the hip. Take your right arm up and start to turn as you move forward. And do it slowly so you can really feel yourself spiraling into the twist. Take your hand to your block or onto your leg or onto the floor. Reignite that right leg. And if you like, you may lift the arm up. Keep drawing that right thigh back to take the heel down. Keep drawing the torso away from the hip and then twist some more. Taking that left arm and opening it. And then release. Hand to the hip. Inhale with you can take both arms up. And then release. Okay, turn your feet forward. We'll take a counter pose now. Taking the feet wide. Take a block and put your block just in front of your mat. Don't have the block too far away. Take the hands to the hips and fold over. Take the hands to the floor. Release the head onto the block. Those of you can bring the head all the way down onto the floor. That's fine. You want to go there. A couple of things you can do. Bring your heels a little further apart. You may lower the block, start there, or you just remove the block and take the head all the way down. Now, don't let all the energy drop into the head. You got to keep a lot of that in the legs. Think about drawing the base of the skull toward the floor. And counter that now with the 2 thighs. And then push into the floor, lift the head. And then just walk your heels in a little bit. Hands to the hips, inhale, come up. And step your 2 feet together. I'm going to turn this way. Inhale the 2 arms upward, Hastasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift your chest and exhale. Plank. So I'm going to just jump back to plank. Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, upward dog. Exhale, down dog. Now, lift your right foot, step it forward, bring your left heel down, and we'll take warrior one, sorry. Warrior one without the arms up. Instead of bringing the arms up, I'm going to take the left arm, bring it across the right thigh, and I'm going to take the right hand onto the sacrum. So remember what we did earlier, where you had the knees down on the ground, we step 1 foot forward. This is really similar, except now we're engaging that back leg. And we're using that as an anchor to twist. Release, step your hands back down, push back to plank. Chaturanga Dandasana. No cheating. Upward facing dog. Let's hold it for a breath or two. Really get that length through the spine. You can actually drop the hips a little bit more here. Let the hips feel heavy, but keep the legs engaged. And then down dog. And then pick up your left foot and step it forward. Turn your right heel down. Come up into warrior one without the arms. Turn that right heel back. You'll take your left hand to your sacrum and your right hand across the left thigh, and I'm going to twist now to the left. And as I twist, I'm countering with his back leg. So that's the main difference between the knees on the ground pose and this pose, is that you're utilizing that back quad very, very strongly to anchor that right side of the body. And then hands down to the floor. Plank. Chaturanga. Upward dog. And downward dog. Bend your knees. Take child's pose. With this child's pose, you may bring your toes straight back, and it's a good opportunity to check your feet. The instincts from one foot to the other might be different. So one foot will turn in a little more, perhaps. So press down into that foot with the toes pointing back. Lift your knee and draw your knee slightly forward. And then do the same on the other side. And then sit back. Let your head descend. Try to nestle the ribs down into the thighs, maybe into the inside of the thigh there. You can get a little bit lower to the ground. And just enjoy, if you can, enjoy the pose. Reclaiming your breath. Good. And then we're going to lie down. Somebody needs to get in here. So, coming down onto the floor, we're going to use our strap. So, this pose will require a big loop. Now I'm going to start about this. So, about a leg's length or so, maybe a tiny bit less, and have access to the buckle or the strap so you can tighten it or loosen it as necessary. I'm going to use my blanket and a block and turn this screen down a little bit here so you can maybe see a little bit more clearly if you need to. So go ahead and lie down. Take the loop and bring it around your left foot. And lift it up. And then lift your right leg and loop your right leg through the strap. And bring it around the thigh. And then I'm going to push through the strap. And then I know whether or not the strap is, the loop is the right size. It's a little bit small. So I'm going to just, and I can always tighten it. I want to be able to bring the hands around the shin and to pull the thigh in. And I want that, I will really want to feel the tension here between the right thigh and the left foot. Then I'm going to bring my block in slightly, and then I'm going to cross the right knee over. You can turn your block up as much as you need to so you can set the knee on the block. And you might need to bring the block higher up as well. Now, what I'm interested in doing here is, yes, I'm twisting, but that's not the main thing right now. I'm interested in stretching the sacroiliac joint here. I'm interested in getting a stretch through this right glute, which is going to give me some of that stretch through the SI joint. And then I'm going to take my right arm and bring it across the left rib and draw the rib around and open my body a little more to the right. Now, if you have the strap around the ball of the foot, you can push into the ball of the foot and you can deepen the experience of the pose that way. It's getting that freedom in the waist. Then take your right arm and extend it over the head. Now lift your head slightly and lengthen through the base of the skull. You can take your hand actually to the base of the skull and draw the skull away from the neck and then come back down. Now, if you'd like to try, I want to add a dimension here. You can straighten the right leg. You don't really need your block here if you take your foot all the way out to the side. And then if you can hold on to the right calf here with your left hand, let's see what happens when you do that. As you do that, reach back with that right arm and twist to your right. Reach back again with that right arm and twist to your right. Get a little more movement around the spine there. Good, and then release. Now it should feel pretty much, if you got your strap and the loop in the right size, it should feel okay on the other side, but it's not a given. So just make sure that you adjust as you need to. Take your head down on the blanket. I'm just going to pivot around here. I can look out toward the camera. And I'm going to start with my foot, my right foot into the loop of the strap, and then my left leg. I take the strap right up high almost into the joint actually there, and then I do want to have access to the strap with the ball of the foot there. Take your fingers, interlock them around the shin. Just hold it here. We want to feel that neutrality of the low back, the sacrum here, to begin. And then take your left knee and bring it over and just set it on the block. Whatever height you need. I think the middle height is a good starting point. You can bring the block a little higher up if you'd like. Then take your left hand and reach it around the right ribs. And as you pull the ribs over to the left, let your gaze turn in that arc again. Before you bring your arm over the head, just take your hand to your hip and get a sense physically of what this pose is doing to the hip and the SI joint and the low back. And then take your arm over the head, turn some more. Extend some more. Now, if you want to go another step and just take the block away and extend the left leg out and take your hand to the calf. Try to keep the leg straight, and then take your left hand right behind the skull, fingers on the base of the skull, lift your head and lengthen the skull back, bring the skull down and turn to the left as you extend through that left arm. Pressing into the ball of the foot here again, the right foot, to increase the tension in the strap and in the hip. Beautiful, good. Release the arm, bend the left knee, turn back, and readjust your hips to center. Set your feet down on the floor, knees bent. Come into a neutral position for a moment. Now just observe the natural curve in the neck, less of a curve in the low back with the knees bent. Okay, roll to your side, help yourself up. We're going to take a seated twist. This seated twist, we're ready for. You're going to take your two heels forward, bend the left knee, take your right hand behind you, lift your left arm, take your arm down. Easy, huh? Marichyasana 1. Too easy. Not really, because it's more about centering your spine. It's more about being mindful of the position of the spine, the posture, and pivoting around that axis. So yeah, it's pretty easy on some levels, but we're going to change that. Take your left arm and lift it. And now extend forward into a forward bend and take your hand to the foot, or put your strap around your foot. If you can, take your hand to the outside of the foot and now turn to your right. And then to make it just a little bit harder, your hand is in the right correct position for this. So you see how the hand is turned like this, so the palm is facing the left. You're going to reach forward and then bring that arm back and bend the elbow and take the right hand back. You need your strap to make contact. That's fine. Try it without first. Then you're going to turn back to your right. Glide your hands down the buttock to lift your chest. So that action actually is important in this pose. You lift the chest as you slide the arms down. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of poses all wrapped into one. It's a seated twist. It's a forward bend. It's a back bend. It's probably even more than all of those. And then release. And step your left foot forward, Dandasana. Take your right heel in. Lift your right arm up, turn to your left and bend the elbow, bring it down, and then you can walk that left hand back. Think about that revolving door with the spine as the central hinge. Then lift the arm up, right arm comes up, and you reach forward. It's a half Paschimottanasana. Turning to the left. And again, just pivoting around that axis. Now take your right hand and reach it to the outside of the foot. And you're not just turning your hand, you're turning your whole arm. So your palm is facing the right and you're turning to the left. And coming into that forward bend even more. Then I'm going to release the hand and bring that elbow out and bring the forearm around and the left hand back. And look, as I deepen into the pose, I slide the hands down so the chest opens even more as we twist. Now try to get onto the ball of that right foot, so don't let that go light. It's a forward bend. It's a twist. But there's also a quality of the back bend here. So that happens when you draw the thoracic spine in and open the chest more and then release. Okay. Well, we're going to move down into final pose today. So for that, you'll want to have a blanket. You'll start with the knees bent. Put your head on the blanket. Let your feet descend into the floor. And then one leg at a time, you're going to stand through the heels. Now, as you do, you're going to notice the lumbar curve a little bit more. And that's a natural curve, so you don't want to diminish that curve completely. We want to constantly challenge it to create more length and less curvature. But we don't want to disregard the natural curves in the spine. Let your biceps roll open. Feel your shoulder blades drop down. You can actually roll to the left shoulder and tuck your right shoulder towards your left buttock. Roll to your right shoulder and tuck your left shoulder blade to your right buttock. Lift your head again and lengthen through the base of the skull. So minor adjustments here equal, the larger result. Now we're here in Shavasana, but I want to do a little breathing here as we move a little deeper into the corpse pose. So I'm going to do a slight lock by drawing the chin down slightly toward the chest and moving the chest toward the chin. I'm going to take a big inhale, and on the exhale, it's a ah. So it's a very long exhale. You want all of that breath out of the body. We're going to do 5 of those. So let's do that. We've done 1. We'll do 4 more. So a little bit of a lock, taking the chin down. Inhale. Nostrils. Exhale, mouth slightly open. Now release by softening the chin a little bit away from the chest. So just letting the position of the head neutralize slightly and just letting your breath come back to a natural rhythm. It's a great breathing technique. If you want a little bit of, added clarity. Dismantling the forelimbs away from the torso, away from the hips. Just feeling like the forelimbs are loosening up and coming apart. Softening the teeth and the gums. Observing the rhythm of the breath, sensing how the breath is moving in and moving out. The more you keep your sensing body on the breath, the more your physical body relaxes, the more your mind becomes quiet. When your mind is quiet, you have an anchor. You have a place of groundedness. Just like you're sitting in a seated pose and feeling grounded. The mind is holding you not from a physical place, but perhaps from an emotional place of groundedness. Bring your attention back to the inside of the mouth and notice any sensation in the hollowness of the mouth. You might sense a relaxing and a releasing of the nervous system here. Draw the knees in towards your chest. Roll to your right side. Self up. If you'd like to come back into the Virasana pose. And your practice today, I suggest that. Otherwise, sit in Sukhasana, perfectly fine. Let your palms open. Draw the navel in. Back of the skull lengthens. Making that adjustment. And then hands to the heart. Namaste.